Hello, welcome back to NMA Associates On-Demand Training. For those of you joining us for the very first time, my name is Michael Crane, and we put these extremely short training segments together to share business intelligence and general life wisdom, if you will, to help you and I reach further towards our full potential. Now, they're only about 3 to 5 minutes in duration, so let's go ahead and jump into today's session, and that is what Winston Churchill can do for our sales strategy. You see, there's a fable about a meeting between Winston Churchill and Hitler. And as the story unfolds, the two meet to decide the fate of the war. And as soon as they become face to face, Hitler begins to make his demands that Churchill give up. Well, of course, in Churchill's resolve, he refused to quit, and that just simply infuriated Hitler even more. And he continuously made his demands that Churchill give up until Churchill said, "Enough. We will decide the fate of the war through a bet." Hitler said, "Fine, what is it?" Well, they were standing next to this koi pond, and Churchill said, "Who can ever capture the most amount of fish will be declared the winner of the war." Well, Hitler, in his haste, leaps into the pond, pulls his gun from his side, and begins to fire away until he comes up with absolutely nothing, except for wet feet. And then Churchill, carefully, methodically, through good routine and process, takes his teaspoon from his teacup, kneels beside the pond, takes the teaspoon, dips it into the water, gets a teaspoon of water, and tosses it over his shoulder, and then he repeats. He takes the teaspoon, he dips it into the water, gets a teaspoon of water, and tosses it over his shoulder. And he just continuously repeats this process, and Hitler is watching this, and he finally says, "Have you gone mad?" And Churchill said, "Not at all." He said, "You moved in haste and came up with nothing but wet feet. I, through good strategy, will continue to repeat this process. And while it may take me a little bit longer, eventually I will drain the entire pond, capture the fish, and win the war." Now, what does that have to do with our sales strategy? Well, perhaps a little dramatic, but a lot of times we pursue our market share much the same. We leap into the market and we begin to spew solutions, hoping that one of them sticks to a client's need and they'll write us a check. We should be more like Churchill and pursue our market share with greater precision. I know for myself, for too many years, I was just leaping into the market, spewing solutions, until a mentor came to me and said, "Michael, you need to understand the difference between activity and accomplishment." He said, "Michael, you're extremely busy, but you come up with nothing except for an extremely thin wallet." And then he said this. He said, "Michael, if this month's results were duplicated 11 more times, what kind of year would you have?" And I knew right then, not good enough. He said, "Michael, pursue the market with greater precision." Now, he was a millionaire many times over, so I knew he had wise counsel. And so he just laid out a very simple plan. So simple, I was a little bit embarrassed, but here's what he said. "Michael, just simply make a list of all of your prospects." He said, "Then quickly define the difference between those who are unattainable or undesirable." Then he said, "Michael, create 6 factors that make up your ideal client." The 6 factors that make up your ideal client. And then rank those 6 in order of perceived importance. And then he said, decide if any of the 6 need to be weighted. Means, do they need to be multiplied? Do they have twice or 3 times the value as the rest? He said, then use those factors to rank your clients. Then pursue the ones at the top of the list with greater precision. Truly understand all of their needs, all of their points of pain, and create a solution to meet all of their specific needs. He said it's the difference between creating a long-term client relationship and just getting a one-time buyer. He said you can either spend your time with one client who can give you one return, or you can invest your time into a client who can compound the return. Means they continuously come back to you over and over and over again because of the solutions that you provide them. So if you're like me and sometimes you can be tempted to leap in, let's make sure that we pull back, listen to the advice of Winston Churchill, and pursue the expansion of our market share with even greater precision.